Hi everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to install a custom turn lock, and this will work for all of your custom turn locks, not just mine. I do apologize in advance for the quality of this video. I'm terrible at video editing, but I figured that doesn't really matter so long as you learn what you need to know for the hardware that you're buying. So I have my heart lock here from round one, and the turn locks consist of 3 parts. So you have the traditional male part, which has 2 prongs on the back, and the female part, which is actually 2 pieces secured together by screws. I've already taken 2 of them out. And there's a couple things you're going to need to put this together. The first is a teeny tiny screwdriver. I got mine for like $5 from Home Depot. If you have an eyeglass screwdriver, sometimes that'll work too. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is take out the tiny screws. I always keep a little like paint bucket thing. You can get them for like 50 cents at the craft store, or use a small cup or ramekin or whatever you have, just so that my screws don't go rolling all over the place, because I have dropped them on the carpet, and you know, that's the end of that. So it consists of 2 parts. So this is actually going to be the part that you see on the front of your project, and this will be on the back. I have 2 pieces of fabric to simulate my you know, a wallet or a purse that I'd be working on. So imagine this is the base and this is your flap that would close over it. Okay. So typically the first thing that you're going to install is the female part, because that's going to dictate where the male part goes. So in order to do that, on the back of your pattern piece, for whatever piece you're working on, you're going to trace the inside of this piece so that you get the right shape. Yes, mark where those screw holes are. Okay, so it'll be like that. Okay. Couple of tools. You absolutely need a small pair of scissors, but you can use a seam ripper to get started. Most of us have those. And for the holes, there's a couple of different tools that you can use. Okay, the tool that I like best is actually a grommet punch. I cheat, and I'll punch holes into vinyl and all kinds of stuff. But this is actually a grommet setter. You can use, I think this is called an awl. It's just super sharp. You can just poke right through there. Okay. The problem is that the holes are not typically very big if you're going to use an awl. So then what I do is I take my stiletto, just put it in there and just kind of work it in, make it a little bigger, things like that. When you're cutting out this center, you want to cut just a touch beyond the line. Okay, just a little bit beyond. So when it's finished, I kind of pre-did one. Okay, it's cut out kind of like this. It's a little messy, right? That's okay. On the front, I'm going to fit it into that hole. And you can see that it fits around all of these pieces. And I like to keep an awl or a stiletto handy, just so that I can help push some of this woven fabric in here. And if you're not, vinyl is a little bit tougher for these. They don't fray, but you got to be real careful about where you're cutting, how big, that kind of thing. If you are using woven, as a lot of us bag makers do, make sure it's interfaced with SF101 or something comparable. Once you have that front piece through, you want to take some fray check and just go all the way around those edges. Okay. And then you're going to fit this on the back. Now, if this were an actual project, right, there would also be a right side here because this would be the finished pattern piece. Okay, so you will see both of these. This is not inside. There has to be a hole through your piece. Okay. Now, a lot of people just take and screw these back on. However, one thing that you can do to make it more secure is use a little bit of E6000, just a dot inside these holes before you put this on. The only reason I'm not going to do this today is because this isn't a legitimate project and I want to be able to take this apart so I can use it again. If you use E6000, that sucker is not coming off. It is gonna stay there. So you're going to fit it into that hole. And you're just gonna screw these back on. Whoop. Make sure that you have it set up, because if you don't, it just kind of flops over. And the reason that we use the fray check just to keep all these stringies, you see here, in check and out of the way. Okay, and so that's what it would look like on the front of your project. Okay, so that piece is done. You're going to follow your pattern along until you get to the part of the pattern that calls for the insertion of the male part of the magnetic stop or of the lock, because you can use a lock in place of any magnetic snap. So this is the male part, for obvious reasons. And it has two prongs on the back. You should also have a washer with it. Okay. Make sure your washer fits and make note of which holes those go through. So mine are both on the very, very end. Typically your pattern piece is going to have a mark where it goes, right? And it will be on the back where you've marked it in the center. Let's pretend that my pattern piece says it's, that's where it goes. I'm going to center up my washer and I'm going to mark where my prongs are. And remember, I put the washer on the back already so that I could see which holes it goes through. Once I have these, I'm going to either take my tiny scissors or I prefer using my seam ripper. And I'm just going to poke in and very carefully slice this length. Don't, go crazy and jab it up there and end up with a slit this long. You'll have a really hard time getting things to stay. Then what you're going to do is take your male piece, put it through, okay. Again, with your fray check, it helps stop your fabric from tearing because, this is a part that you're going to pull on and use. It's what's going to open it. For added stability, you're going to take a scrap piece of Peltex. Never throw these away. Just as before, you're going to mark where your washer fits. Carefully cut those slits and put them on the back. Once your Peltex is done, this is again going to help to keep your lock from ripping off through wear and tear. I'm going to put my washer on. Some people bend out. I always bend in. I'm not sure it really matters. If one of you other bag makers disagree with me, feel free to say so in the comments, and everybody can do their thing. So you can push it in. I never feel quite secure enough. So I always like tap it real gentle with a hammer. Make sure those suckers are really down there, right? Okay. And then that piece is installed. This is, of course, going to be on the inside of your project. And the problem is, right, is that you don't want fabric rubbing against that metal. So a way to prolong the life of your lock, your bag, your wallet, whatever, is to take a piece of duct tape. I always use white, because if you use silver or black, but you're using light colored fabrics, it can show through. So I always use white. And I just tape right over that metal so that now we're heavily reinforced. There's no metal rubbing on fabric. It is secured. Make sure always that, of course, this tape is outside of any seam allowance you might have, because you don't want to sew through duct tape. You will gunk up your needle, throw off your timing, just generally irritate your machine. Okay, so that's sealed. And now you have your male piece and your female piece. And if this were a bag, you would insert just like this. And ta-da! Sealed, okay? Oh, see? I made mine too big. So this is also part of it, right? I don't have any interfacing in here. And you can see there's this huge gap. So mine came undone a little bit, which is why typically when you're doing a bag or a wallet, right, you'll have this, you'll have SF101, you'll have usually fleece or Peltex or foam or something else, because you don't want, you know, a gap like that. Okay, but anyway, that's how you attach it. Ta-da! And then they're secured. And that's how you install a turn lock. Anyway, happy sewing.